Hello, everybody. Beck Smith here, former footballer and founder of Crux Sports. I'm super stoked to be leading this discussion today for the MIP conference, always one of my favorite events of the year. This session is going to be all about the opportunities within social media, how we use it, what are the challenges, the good, the bad, the ugly, and maybe a little bit about the trolls today as well. First, I'm going to start off by introducing some of our incredible panelists, or all of our panelists for that matter. First, we have Gaisca Mendieta. You know him formerly as a footballer from Spain, Valencia, Middlesbrough. He played over 263 games in La Liga. Now you are a TV analyst, pundit, and a La Liga ambassador. Welcome, Gaisca.
Thank you.
Second, we have Diana Matheson, ex-Canadian soccer player. I can tell you from experience, she was one of my least favorite players to play against. You're welcome. Majored in economics at Princeton University and was voted Ivy League Player of the Year and did all kinds of amazing things for that Canadian national team, much to my dismay. Hey, Diana, how are you doing? Good to see you again.
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Much better to see you on social media than on the pitch. And thirdly, we have Nat Blackheaven, who we think maybe has one of the best last names on the planet, but you're also the social lead of the DAZN group. Also, you worked across social media at some of the world's best clubs, well, arguably best clubs, depending on where your fan is, but Chelsea, Man City, Juventus, and now you also looked at you looked after a lot of player accounts as well. So welcome to the panel as well.
Thank you so much, Bex. Appreciate it.
Nice. All right, let's get into this then. I want to talk about just in general how you guys use social media. What do you think about it? The good, the bad, the ugly. Let's start with you guys. Do you use social media? What do you use?
I do use social media. I think nowadays, if you want to be up there, especially on any industry, but in particular, we're focusing today in football, you need to have social media. Obviously, there's a lot of, like anything, pros and cons. I'm quite active, but I think in a professional way. I think also social media is a reflection of the person that is using it, whether you are professional or still active or as professionally football player or dedicated to any other job in the football industry. It's a reflection of who you are, and I think you have to make very clear how you want to use it, how much time you want to use it, how much you want to structure it. I'm quite active on Instagram and Twitter in particular. I have LinkedIn, which I use very rarely. I think it's a different kind of platform related to what I do, but I think it's very effective and very, very impacting when I use it. Twitter, I see more of a discussion platform, which I'm not very active neither in that sort of way of becoming controversy. I'm happy to have conversations, but not very controversy for that matter in the platform, and I think I use it a lot for information. So I really like that Twitter for that. And I think that the most that I use, and I think the most used platform we'll find probably in football is Instagram at the moment. Maybe TikTok is growing quite fast as well, which I also have a profile, which I try to use every now and then. So yeah, I spend most of the social media, I'll say, on Instagram, with the content obviously on the feed, the stories. It's usually when you have events, when you have traveling here and there. Some weeks, some days when things are a bit more boring is when you are thankful for planning ahead a little bit, and it always takes you out situations where you don't really have much to plan because you're not left home or the office. But still, you have to be creative. You have to entertain people. That's I think where people use social media to kind of get a grasp of your life, personal and professional, and in a way, that's what I'm trying to do on my platform.
Really interesting. Diana, what about you? Do you use social media? Which platforms do you use the most, if you do?
Yeah, I feel like everyone is kind of just a product of their age for which platforms they use a little bit. So, I mean, you and I played before there was social media, and then it entered the game. I feel like Twitter came around like 2012. When Canada won a bronze medal, and that was kind of the moment where you either had a Twitter account and you didn't, and it was kind of normal to be on both sides. But then like 1 year later, if you didn't have a Twitter account, you were completely out of it, I think. So I grew up mostly with Twitter, So I would say that's what I use the most. I never posted as much on Instagram. I do have an Insta, but my partner would tell me that I'm terrible at it. And I have about an average of 1 post a month, I think, for the last 2 years. So I should probably up that. But definitely Twitter, and mostly as, branding and marketing and staying attached to the football world. And, I'm trying to help push for a professional women's league in Canada. And it's definitely a tool to get messaging out for that. I feel like Twitter, it went from, the new innocent social media platform to being mostly work related, it seems like these days. And especially for women's footballers, I think it is a means to brand ourselves, get ourselves out there, and make sure the public knows who we are. Definitely the young kids these days are on the TikTok. I think we can all see that. TikTok's the future. And I'm on there too, just scrolling. I feel like I get most of my information now from TikTok. It keeps me connected to the world and kids and lots of funny humor. And I haven't figured out how to post on TikTok yet. So I post still on Twitter, I think.
Well, maybe Nat can help with that. I feel like you're the professional here, Nat. So give us your spiel on social media, the different platforms, how you use them, and then like from a professional capacity as well, how you see it from you personally.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because listening to you guys just now saying that you're very active on social media. For me personally, it's quite the opposite because I work in it so much. I don't have time to do my own social media. I've got to do everybody else's social media. So it's quite funny, and I really liked and enjoyed what you guys said because for you, your ex players or like your TV personalities. So there's a reason for you to be on social media. You have people naturally that want to follow you, that want to hear what you say. I'm just boring. Nobody wants to follow me. So Diana, you were saying you have about an average of 1 post a month. I've got an average of 1 post a year. So put it that way. However, on the flip side, I think both of you are absolutely correct in like breaking down the different social media platforms and the audiences on there. Diana, you were saying that all the kids are on TikTok nowadays. I mean, the future right now of social media is absolutely TikTok. When everybody asks me that question, where are we going to next? Like, we have the platform right in front of us. That it's very rare that you can say, in 10 years there's going to be this thing and you can do this AR or VR type thing. No, TikTok is such a dominant beast right now in the game. And if anybody is kind of looking at TikTok as, it's just for people that are under the age of 16 or whatnot, let me tell you something now. Last year in 2021 was the first time in like forever that the #1 search engine in the world was not Google. The #1 search engine in the world for 2021 was the TikTok search. Like, just so you understand the levels of that platform. And it just goes to show the direction of social media. I think moving into more of my professional area now. So, previously I worked with a bunch of different athletes. Right now it's less now. I work with a few. But, guys, you're talking about the importance of planning. Now, a lot of time in everyday life, the people that use TikTok, social media in general, it's, you kind of do it for fun. You kind of do it to entertain. You kind of do it, because your friends are on it. In your capacity, and hopefully the people that are listening on this call and the people that I work with, it's all about planning. It's absolutely essential to information, and information is essential to everyday life. So, talking about Twitter being a conversational platform, absolutely. News is developing on Twitter all the time. Instagram leading a little bit more to giving people, into your personal life, as you mentioned, guys, got absolutely correct. Stories, even on the feed. And more so as we go into TikTok. So, my job is all about doing that. It's about entertainment. People understand these athletes from an on-pitch perspective, because you see it on broadcast, right? You see it on TV. It's easy to see that. But what you don't see is the other element, right? It's the behind the scenes element, which a lot of audiences want to see right now. And it's just an opportunity to do that. And then the information side of things, being more conversational on a platform like Twitter. So, they're all different. I hope I explained a little bit about the differences between, personal life like me, who only post once a year, to then doing it in a more professional standpoint, and why it's so important in a professional standpoint.
Yeah, that's so interesting too, that TikTok, it was the #1 search engine last year. I never would have guessed that. But then looking at the fact that they were one of the only 3 sponsors of the men's Euros last year, I guess, that shows their interest and getting more into sports as well, their sponsorship. So that's quite interesting, I thought as well, that you now have social platforms that are partnering with some of the world's biggest sporting events. But you guys have all mentioned sort of different reasons why you use social media. And I just wanted to ask you guys, have you seen any examples you talked about, you use it for entertaining your fans. That was one of the things. You guys also mentioned branding, marketing, tools for messaging. Have you seen any great examples of, social media and which platforms for specific purposes from either like a personal standpoint or maybe a brand doing something or players or former players? Start with you guys.
I can give an example first.
Yeah.
I want to talk about TikTok as well. So Chelsea player, Mason Mount, very, England player, very loved within the community at the moment. After the summer, they had a great European Cup, and they went to the semi-final. Unfortunately, they didn't win it, but won the Champions League. Very, very big in terms of the media, right? And he started to grow his fan base really, really, really quickly. And if you look on his TikTok compared to looking on his other platforms, you can clearly see a strategy there on what he's trying to do on TikTok as opposed to his others. All of his TikTok content is really just about who he is as a person. And there was a really funny example of when he had just been to the dentist and he got his wisdom teeth taken out. A lot of people, at a younger age will get their wisdom teeth taken out if it's bothering them. And he's under the anesthesia, the drugs. And obviously he's in a bit of a world of his own. And credit to his mum, because his mum had the presence of mind to film him in this state, right? And we all see Mason Mount on TV, very well spoken, very intelligent individual in front of the camera, absolutely knows what he's doing, right? And you see him in this state on his own personal platform, literally in loopy land. It's the most hilarious thing you'll see. Go to his TikTok now, go look at it. It's the most hilarious thing you'll see, and it just does that much more for humanizing the athlete, right? And if you humanize the athlete, I think it brings so many opportunities, not outside of football. We talk about brands start coming to people, say this is the person that we want to associate with, because you can see he has a certain affiliation with his audience. And there's a bunch of examples. That one just came off the top of my head. I remember that one, but that's one from an athlete that I have.
I think that's where my generation, or the retired former players, struggle maybe a little bit with, in the sense of we grew up in or maybe more my circle, my own experience. But I'd say wherever I played, Spain, England, Italy, it kind of was the same. We always try to protect the dressing room. You always try to protect your privacy, because media always try to get through, always try to show something, not always for the positives, but for the negatives. So you kind of always very reserved for what you want to show. With now, it's completely the opposite. Like you say, people see you on the pitch, see you on training all the time, so he wants to see something else. In my own experience, that's why I find also more difficult when it comes to, doesn't come natural to show, because now the young people get the phone, dentist, shopping, doing whatever. It's like a habit. Get the phone on and broadcast it. And I think from people outside that age bracket, it is where I find it more difficult to become open up about what you do it. But I think it's great. I think you have to learn, you have to adapt to them. Nowadays, we see it in football clubs and players showing you. If you tell football players 10, 15 years ago, they will be filming and showing the live homes, what they do all the time in the dressing room. They tell you you're crazy. Where now, I think that's the interesting part of social media, because people see how football players, in this case, live off the pitch, which is, I think, what attracts more of the followers.
Yeah, it's almost like MTV Cribs was that behind the scenes, getting into the homes of like all these famous people. Now it's like they make all their own shows themselves. So yeah, they own their own brand. Diana, what about you? Have you seen any like great examples of people, businesses, brands, using social media platforms for a specific purpose?
Yeah, I feel like the ones that come to mind for me are the athletes using the platform to push for change, either very intentionally, like Marcus Rashford did in England, pushing government policy. That's incredible coming from an athlete. Obviously, that takes a lot of planning and lobbying behind the scenes, but then he pushes it through on social media, and that really pushes forward public opinion. And then with less planning and just a social media post, the NCAA player a year and a half ago now, Sedona Prince out of Oregon, who posted that post about the NCAA women's basketball tournament. I don't know if you guys remember that one. She posted a picture of the women's gym, which was essentially like a folding table with some 5-pound weights on it and a yoga mat. And then she had a classmate post a photo that she put up as well of the men's gym, which was, full professional gym. And that was a tipping point, and that got a lot of attention, and there was a lot of pushback. And you saw from that, the women's tournament this year for NCAA basketball had totally different coverage. Actually had the NCAA branding on the courts, which it never had before. I know here in Canada, the coverage on broadcast was way better. And it was from this one athlete posting. And there's things like that where the athlete voice and activism is just able to come through and shine a light on things that without that tool, I think it wouldn't have been shone on. And then it gets some great public support around it and things actually start to change. That's when I see it as a really exciting tool.
That's so true. That's such a good point. And then you saw LeBron James putting on the sweatshirts that were supporting the WNBA, didn't you? And then he used his social media platforms to help support the women. That's true. That was a really good example. Really good examples. I think just in like a little bit of a step change from all the positive things to, we kind of all know the challenges in terms of abuse and being exposed to negativity on social media. Even Chelsea boss Emma Hayes recently said that she fears online abuse of players could lead to suicides within the game. And that's, a very serious topic to look at. In terms of that, how would you guys advise others to manage that, specifically from a leadership position? Some leaders go on social media, some don't. But if you are active on social media, how would you ensure that those problems don't have a massive impact on you, your work, and the mental health of maybe other, people that you're managing on teams? Should we start with you guys, Ka?
Well, I think like Diana said, I think we have to take advantage of these platforms. They give you voice to, unfortunately, for the good and for the bad. But I think we have to always take the positives. And for what I know, for what I've been doing, that you get used to be mostly from Twitter, not so much, a little bit on Instagram, and definitely not on the other platforms. But I always focus on the positive. So whenever there are comments on a post, or if you are in any event or TV and people are commenting on the actual event, I will try to reinforce those positive comments. I will obviously report the ones that are out of order, but certainly not making notice of those negatives. I think it's important always to unify all those positives and whatever is the message that you can put out there, whether if it's to reinforce sports or people. I think you have to continue to work in that way. We have to continue to work in that way to make it stronger. And like I said, I think nature and all this positiveness and all that direction will, I think, eventually will leave behind the negative. Certainly some platforms should need or require a bit more restrictions in the way, or more control, because I think Twitter in particular, it's very easy. People really, hide behind a false identity when it comes to this. So there's no responsibility on whatever everyone says. It's very difficult to understand, to also to attack or to track these things. But I think also trying to make a safe environment also is from the authorities to the duty to make it.
Yeah. Okay. So we should just hit up Elon Musk maybe and see if he can help with that on the Twitter side.
Sure, he'll help.
Yeah. Nat, you must have seen quite a lot as well, dealing with a lot of, very top players as well. What would your advice be for those watching now? And how did you deal with some of the negativity that I'm sure they must have faced as well on social media?
Yeah, that is such a brilliant question. Firstly, what I will say is that, and not a lot of people know this, but the platforms themselves have strict policies in place. Well, we say strict because, you know, some do get through the cracks, but they do have policies in place to stop this. And what a lot of people don't know is that within the settings of each of these platforms, there are tools and mechanisms there to you know, turn off kind of abuse. You know, a lot of these platforms are very smart, they're very intelligent. Through years of operating, they can kind of track hate crime and words and whatnot, and you can simply switch it off. You know, so I know Twitter has one. You know, I've worked with players where we've had to do that. Instagram and Facebook, they all have these. The problem is that it's not public enough. People don't know. You know, I'm sure a lot of people on this call now, in this conference now, didn't actually know that, but it's all there. It is all there within the app. You go into settings, you will find it. It's all there. You can simply switch it off, and it filters all of the kind of hate and the DMs, and it, you know, it goes away. But what I think is that the platforms themselves need to be more public about letting people know that these things do exist, because they do. You know, so, you know, yeah, to answer your question, that's it. But I really like Gaiska's advice, though. You know, generally, as an overall point of view, focus on the positives. You know, everyone on this call would be more impacting a person's life in a positive way than a negative way. So then just focus on the positives. But
Yeah.
those tools are in place, though. They do.
Can you give us like one example? So let's say Twitter, like where do you find that, for example? Because I didn't know that.
Yeah, so on Twitter, you have to go into the settings. I believe it's called, you know, while we're on here now,
anti-troll setting or something.
Yeah, and I believe it's called safe mode. If I go to privacy and settings here, because I'm actually on Twitter as I'm doing it. Yeah, here we go. Privacy and safety. Mute and blocking spaces.
We'll leave you to it. We'll let you find that one, because in the meantime, I want to move on. But I just think it's interesting to actually, you know, what is it? Where do you go? What is it? I think that would be super helpful for all of us, because yeah, I'm kind of done with them. What about you, Diana? What have you had any negative sort of responses from social media? What do you do? What would you recommend to players and people in, you know, higher positions in football nowadays?
Yeah, I'll fill when Nat figures it out and tells us all how to do that. I've been pretty lucky, to be honest. I mean, I think certainly the bigger your platform is, the more likely it is you're going to have trolls. I think, you know, being a white women's footballer with a predominantly Canadian following has helped me avoid. I know, you know, a lot of the bigger names in the US have a big problem with their trolls with, you know, US followers. I know Black players have a huge problem. I know a lot of women in journalism in Canada have a huge problem. So I think using the tools Nat's talking about is a big one. I mean, one strategy I know players have taken that have faced a lot more hate online has been to just not read the comments, to block as many people as you can, to use the tools online again to report the posts anytime you get them, report them. I think the social media platforms have been far from perfect at dealing with all this, but as Nat said, there's at least a few tools, so make note of those. I know some Canadian women journalists too have been good at kind of putting those posts on blast. If you're comfortable doing that and you get a brutal post and you want to put them on blast, put them on social media, I think that helps, you know, shame them, but also make it aware that you are getting these posts. Because again, it's not everyone that's getting them, right? It's minorities and other groups are getting more hate than other people, for sure. And I think we all have to help protect people online. So the more people are aware of it, the more we can use the tools Nat's going to tell us about, the better. But then at the end of the day, like, hopefully the social media platforms, and I don't know, even if there's, you know, government regulations on some of these things, I think those things are going to have to catch up at some point. Social media has been around pretty heavily for a decade now. So hopefully our governments and Twitter catch up, because there's so much hate online that we've been pretty slow to keep up with. So hopefully that is something that only gets better and better now that social media has been around for a decade. I don't have my money on Elon to fix any of this, but we'll see what happens. Maybe someone else will come in and do a good job.
Yeah, Nat, give it to me.
Yeah, I found it now. And you know what would be
Cool.
useful, actually? I don't know if the system's in place, but to kind of share this document with everyone here for afterwards as well, I think. But anyway, on Twitter, in the safety and privacy section, you can find something called safety mode. All you have to do is simply turn that on. Just turn that on. And then what it does is that, yeah, through its AI or whatever, it can just like slowly learn the kind of hate words and then just filter everything out. But you can also as well select specific words that you don't want to be seen ever.
Nice.
So yeah, there's how to do it. But
that's awesome. Okay, we'll get that shared with everybody. We can't share it now, but we can definitely do it afterwards. So thank you very much for that. And any of the other platforms as well that you find that, we'll definitely get those out to everybody. Wicked. Amazing. What do you guys think about, we've seen some managers and senior admins come on and be quite active on, like, let's say LinkedIn, or managers like Conte, Mourinho on Instagram. What are your guys' thoughts on these types of leaders, senior leaders, using or not using platforms? Would you advise a manager or director of football? Would you advise a coach to go on social media? Start with you guys, Ka.
Well, I think they should. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. That's what people want to know. It goes with the personality and the character of the person, whether you are more open up about your life or you're more private. But I think it's good for the person itself, and also for the club, how you show yourself in the way you work, and the way the team, the club operates, the kind of things you're not gonna share confidential information. But certainly, I think it will help to bring the fans closer to the actual person, but also to the club. And I think that's always positive. So I would recommend any president, any CEO, any director of football to use it obviously wisely, and probably align with the social manager of the club themselves. I think they're always working in the same sort of line.
That's a really good point, actually. So it's not just about their own personal brand, but in line with what the club's desires and objectives are. That's a really good point. Diana, what about you? What do you think about, coaches and directors going on social media, using it?
Yeah, I liked what Gaska said just about it depends on the personality of the coach. I think maybe especially younger managers and directors now would have grown up with it. They're comfortable with it, and it's kind of just a part of their lives. So it's not too much more of a heavy lift. And then, of course, there's some people that don't enjoy doing it. It's too much. So then, I mean, if it's ever going to distract from the job, from the load, I think get it played. But if you're comfortable doing it, I mean, I look at it again through of the women's game, and I know some managers out there, some younger women's coaches are using it, and they're very aware of it as a branding and marketing tool. I mean, the more faces and names we can get in women's football that people know and can recognize with, and then they're relating them to different clubs, I think is a good thing. I look at Rian Wilkinson, a Canadian. She's coaching the Portland Thorns right now. She's active on Twitter, especially, but she's very aware that it's a tool, and it's putting messaging out, and it's putting positivity out, and it's directing people maybe to events, but also to, the philosophy that the club's trying to push. So it's always a tool. And if you're able to raise the profile of the women's game by using it and bringing positivity and eyeballs to your club, I think it's a really good thing. So
yeah,
if you're comfortable with it, and you can kind of get that messaging out there, I think it's great. I think if you ever get into a manager and director just spouting their opinions of perhaps about the game or the center back's performance that game, then you've got a huge problem. But if they're using it knowingly and ably, then I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I like the fact that you use the center back as the main position there, Diana. Thank you for that. We appreciate that. Nat, what about you? Do you think, Gaiska and Diana both mentioned if you do it correctly, then actually it can be quite positive. Do you think that it's important that an expert that works, someone like you that works in social media, then helps senior leaders in this space in social media? Is it worth, the money? Is it worth spending money on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think of yourself as in a position, like as a senior leader, you essentially are a decision maker, right? And if you look across all decision makers outside of sport, outside of football, just in general, all decision makers have advisors behind them, every single one of them. So in that position, you will have a certain number of social media followers. Let's just take a number. Let's say you have 1 million social media followers. That means that every time you publish on social media, you are broadcasting a message to 1 million people, probably more if it gets engagement and people start to share it, probably double that number to 2 million people. So if you think you're broadcasting a message to this amount of many people, you are going to want someone to advise on that message, to say, is this the right thing to do? Or can we tweak it to do it better? Should we just not do it at all? Essentially, if you're going to be speaking to that many people on such a public platform, it is 100% worth any kind of investment to have someone advising that.
Mm. Is there any sort of like generic advice that you would give to general managers? Are there any risks and watch outs? Like, for example, I talk a lot to referees and they're never on social media and they're not advised to go on social media, which is quite an interesting one, right? Because, there's a lot of risks as a referee to go on social media, but are there any that we see as a coach, as a manager, as a director of football?
In this position, what I would say is one word: educate. I think in these positions, I think a lot of people, from a general point of view, will be following not for the entertainment, not for the information, but from an educational perspective. As a coach, you will have a lot of young and older people that want to follow you because they admire you and they admire the position you're going to be in. So I think using it as a form of education and educating people on the ins and outs of the profession that you do is just, an area for good, I would say. So just to pick one word, if I were, I'd say educate.
Really good.
I think that's true of the refs too. I mean, I don't see a world where a referee could have a social media profile without just getting hammered every single day of their lives. But it would be good, right?
Right?
You could educate about some of the decisions that have had to be made and why they're difficult, because it's always harder when you're actually making them in real time, right? And B, it would humanize them, like we'd get to know them as people. So it probably would be a positive, but no, they'd never survive, would they, online? They'd have to turn off all the comments all the time.
They'd have like an extra button for all the social medias of like the referee turn off. Yeah. Guys, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look at football as the soccer and the NFL, American football. Like, referees speak to the public. We see also in rugby. Referees talk to the public to explain the decision they're making. And we see now in football, referees obviously not talking to the public, but talking amongst them, and there's communication. So I can't see why not at one point that communication could be open to everyone to understand the referee's decision. Like Diana says, to get to know the human being behind the referee. At the end of the day, there's players, there's human being behind the players, there's a referee, there's a human being behind that referee. So it would definitely help to understand a lot of things that happen, like talking to the media before or after the games. I think we still have way on that to that point, but why not at some point? Eventually, we'll get to the situation where referees can also have a voice and explaining, who they are, what they do, why they do the things they do.
Yeah. I think you personally, I think you have like a really nice way on social media. I think that you do it in a really, in a good manner. And obviously that's probably why they invited you to be on this panel. But are there any risks that you see for coaches or, leaders in football? Is there any advice that you would give? Because you do such a nice job yourself. Any watch outs?
I think once you sign up, that's it, you're in trouble, because you're exposed for, like Nat said, you're exposed to everyone to say whatever they think of you or what you're doing. But through your work, through your social media platforms and the message you put it out there, people will see who you are, and eventually those trolls will left behind. So again, for me, always focus on the positive, on the good things you're doing. Obviously to promote on what you're doing, because at the end of the day, once you become on social media, most of the time you are a brand, you are promoting yourself. Then is the personal side as well, but you're promoting yourself, so you have to promote what you do, whether it's TV or coaching or playing or CEO or director of football. So what you're doing to be in that position? Also because that's what people want to see. I think we started the conversation with that. People follow you because they want to see what you do, and not only on the professional side, but also on the personal side. So you have to try. That's why I try at least to give a bit of both.
Yeah. Diana, is there anything that you've seen on social media, like from a coach or someone in a higher ranked position in football, where you were like, oh, that was a major faux pas, I would definitely avoid something like that?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't have one offhand. Nat, do you have a good one? Toss.
Probably, yeah, I can't say. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good question though. Come back to me
Put
on that one.
Yeah, I'll think. I don't have one at the top of my head.
The privacy now. Put the privacy now.
Yeah.
Safety mode on.
No, but one of the platforms that I particularly like and has been quite beneficial in my career has been LinkedIn. I don't know if you guys use it as well. It's obviously sort of a different vibe to obviously TikTok and Twitter and we don't really talk about it as much as social media, but it's where a lot of people go and they are very happy to say, I'm so honored to have been blah 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 blah, as a nice way of boasting about themselves. But do you think that there are some nice, have you seen some nice posts there? Do you guys use it? What are your thoughts on LinkedIn more generally?
Can I start?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn as a social media platform. When it first launched, it was definitely, and it still is, geared towards the professional side of life, and being work life. But now you're seeing a lot more opinion leaders being able to have a platform on social media. LinkedIn is kind of the voice for people that weren't necessarily the football players or the TV personalities or whatnot. It's giving people a voice that can be a manager at an organization, and I think it's definitely a tool to what's the word I'm looking for, to show people what can be achieved. You can say, I did so and so and so and this. It achieved this many results, and it can just inspire people a lot more. And yeah, you're seeing more coaches, you're seeing more senior leaders on that platform being able to do that just for the inspirational factor of it. So, and I see it kind of in between like a Facebook and an Instagram. It does have certain elements of engagement and entertainment, which is fantastic from the Instagram point of view. But then it has what I was saying before, from the inspirational point of view, like a Facebook, to try and give information in a positive way. So I really do enjoy LinkedIn. I would love to see more like current athletes on it. We do see a lot of coaches, a lot of managers. I'd love to see more current athletes utilizing that platform.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm always shocked because when I want to post something and tag some of the players, they're never on there, and I don't understand it, because for me that was the best transition from the sports network and the sports platforms into the business side, and I completely agree with that. Gaiska or Diana, do you use LinkedIn? Gaiska, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely agree with Nat. I love it. It's probably the example to the other networks, platforms, how should be done with the respect. And I think education is the big word again. Not mention it. I think it's in the way you can be educated. People can be educated. And the word I love about LinkedIn is not only that you can post, and of course you got the feedback, but how many articles I could read at the end of the day through LinkedIn. I find so much interesting information related to things that I really care about. So I'm not very regular user as a posting or sharing information rather than consumer, and that's why I like it. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you're similar to how Diana uses TikTok. You read it, but you don't post as much. Diana, what about you? Do you use LinkedIn?
Yeah, you know what? After what you guys have just said, I need to use it more. So I only retired just over a year ago now. So I think after I retired, I signed up to LinkedIn, and I think it seems like a very good tool to connect with more people and a little bit more on kind of the industry business level. So I would echo what you said, Bex, and players should be on, especially, I mean, if you're young or, in your prime, you probably don't need it yet, to be honest. But as you get closer to the end of your career, I think it is something to start thinking about. Is it another thing to check and update? Yes. I think it's really useful if you consistently go on there, which has been my problem. I do have a profile, but I don't consistently go on there. But for sure, it's more the business side, isn't it? Like, you're going to connect through people that are in your industry somewhere else or kind of adjacently related. So I think it's a different group of people that you can connect with. So I think it for sure is a really useful tool, and that more players, I think, need to be aware of it and use it as they get closer to the end of their playing days.
Yeah, and I think that's a really nice one to end on because we do have to wrap up at some point today, unfortunately, although I feel like we could just keep chatting about this. But how much of an impact do you think having a really strong social media profile can have on that transition, like getting a job or influencing the industry, like you mentioned, Diana, making change while you're still a player? How important is that profile, Nat?
Yes, 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 yes. 1,000 times. It is so important. I speak to kids at university as well. I do guest lectures. I stress the importance of being on LinkedIn. Why? Because it puts you in front of people. It literally puts you in front of people in a way that we couldn't have imagined, way back when. Now on LinkedIn, we can talk to, thousands of people. We can display the message that we want to display, right? And as guys have said, we can do it in an educational format. You don't have to do it in an entertainment format. You can put yourself out there. You can show your skills. You can show your abilities. Doesn't matter who you are. You could be a student at university. You could be a top football player. It doesn't matter who you are, but you can show your skills and abilities to people. When you show your skills and abilities to people, opportunities come. Always. That's how life works. So yes, totally.
Nice. I like that too. You can use it for entertainment, but also to get your own skills and capabilities out there on the different platforms. Guys, what about you? We've got like 2 minutes, so give us a minute worth. Go.
No, I totally agree with Nat. I think, well, in my days when I retired, I think Twitter was just arrived and Instagram kind of the same. So it was more of a personal. But nowadays, any professional athlete, footballers should have social media, not only for what we were saying all this time about projecting your image and selling yourself as a brand or putting yourself out there as a voice, but most importantly as a transition, because you don't realize when you're there until you are on the other side. Once you're on the other side, you realize how important that was. Not only again to put your message there, to put your skills, if you have any studies or careers, or you finish any MBAs or whatever educational careers you might have, but also to put yourself out there as whatever you want to be. You want to be a manager, a marketing guy, you want to be in the media. So you have to show the world what you want to do. And that's what social media will help you a lot, because all those followers, all those connections will give you opportunities in the second career. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Diana?
Yeah, same. I think it's a tool, isn't it? So when you're still playing, it's kind of a tool just to, put a little more about your life out there and get some followers. But really, it's connecting you to people. Like Nat said, you never know who you're gonna need in those connections in the future. And like Gazka said, it's your brand, right? Like every post you put out, I think we all know whatever we put out these days is very much public, and it's an investment in our brand and our future career. It's putting out messaging that we have the ability to control, which is a totally different world than 10, 15 years ago, right? We're pretty lucky to be in the situation where we get to brand ourselves without too much of a cost. I think unless we hire Nat, I'm going to hire you after this. But, just an investment, right, into whatever you want to do. And you can use that tool as much or as little as you want. But I think every little bit you put in is an investment to the future, I think.
And it's also doing it while you're relevant as a player, when you have that profile and you have that visibility to make sure that you can build it then. Really great stuff, guys. I really appreciate it. And I also work with some players, and there's the first thing we always look at is just their social media presence as a starting point. So would have to echo all of your sentiments. So thank you guys so much for joining. This has been so much fun. We'll just continue on another link after this. Thanks. And for all of you guys watching, after this session, we're going to be discussing equality and diversity with Jason Roberts hosting. So definitely come back at 3:15 British Standard Time. Thanks a lot. See you then.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.